Thank you for being here at this hour. My name is Dan Mircea Suciu. I'm Director of Global Learning and Development at Three Pillar Global. And I would like to talk today about a new movement in Agile community, which I called #NoAgile. First of all, let me thank all sponsors and partners of this event. They made this event possible, and also organizers asked me to kindly ask you to fill the feedback on the event application from your mobile phones. Okay, I was working in software development by 20 years. Of course, first of all as a developer, after that as a technical lead, architect, project manager, scrum master, and so on. I'm usually talking from my experience in my presentations. Today I will make an exception. All the concepts, all the things, all the thoughts, all the philosophies I will talk about today are not based on my experience. They are pretty new things, and I just read about them this year and in 2016. And it seems that something is changing in the Agile world. If you are looking to this very well-known innovation adoption curve, we can say that before 2001, we had the innovators. There was a couple of visionary individuals who defined some so-called lightweight software management methodologies. And after 2001, when Agile Manifesto was created, was defined, we had, let's say, a trend in adopting Agile. Mainly Scrum, because 58% of development teams right now are using Scrum. So that's why there is a confusion between Agile and Scrum, usually. Anyways, there are a lot of other Agile methodologies which are still used. Till 2005, we have that early majority, after that late majority, till 2009, and since 2014, there are just a few, let's say, software development teams which are not working in using Agile, one of the Agile methodologies. We can call, or we can put some names for each of those periods. The first one is, we can call it geek. The second one, when Agile became a trend, is trendy period. After that, Agile was seen as a very, very cool method to develop software. Around now, a lot of people from Agile community are saying that Agile is lame. It's pretty interesting that in the last 2 years or 3 years, when I participated in different Agile focused conferences, most of the keynote speakers were speaking against Agile. It was a surprise for me to realize that. I've heard a lot of things like Agile is dead, or we have to get rid of Agile, we should not use Agile word anymore. So it's something is happening in this community. So there are some changes we have to expect in next years. For instance, in one of those conferences, I saw this quote, which is pretty interesting. It came from Eric Hoffer, who said, "Every great cause begins as a movement, becomes a business," and we know this very well, and eventually degenerates into a racket. And those speakers I was talking about, they said that Agile is in this third phase. Now, of course, that software development is a new industry. It started in 1980, so it has around to 35 years. So I think we are in the childhood stage. In 2001, we saw for the first time something, let's say, more disciplined defined about Agile. It was Agile Manifesto. I was surprised to see that a couple of guys who were part of that group of 17 people who defined Agile Manifesto, and then another group which defined another thing called Declaration of Interdependence. They defined in 2005 other principles and other values and, of course, other practices for the software development world. And in 2015, for instance, just to mention a few of these, let's say, movements, was defined Modern Agile by Joshua Kirivsky, who he said that he doesn't like to assign or to connect any particular practice to this modern Agile, so he defined just 4 principles, and he said that every software development team should follow these 4 principles. Now, you know, when I was a kid, I read a book. It was a story, actually, not a book, called The Boy Who Embraced the No World. And it seems that Agile community is acting as a rebel kid right now, because very often I'm seeing a lot of #no things. So that's why I call the new movement, or the new, let's say, the new level or the stage of Agile, #NoAgile. There are a lot of things like #NoEstimates, #NoProjects, #NoBacklog, #NoIteration, #NoRelease. And there are a few others like #NoArchitecture or #NoCeremonies, #NoMeetings. Yeah, #NoResist. #No hashtag. Huh? There are a lot of things like this, and I would like to talk about these 5 concepts a little bit. As I said, I'm not an advocate of these concepts. I just read about them. They are pretty interesting, and they are based on some very clear facts. So they could shape the future of Agile. If you are searching on Twitter after #NoAgile, there are a lot of different people, a lot of different individuals who are using this hashtag. Some of them are frustrated by using Agile. For instance, this guy made a connection between #NoAgile and #AgileKillsKittens. There are others who are seeing the future of Agile. So like a natural evolution of Agile as being #NoAgile. And there are others, of course, who are saying that #NoAgile means actually not only Agile. So it's not no Agile. I don't want to be Agile anymore, but we should use also other methods or other methodologies than Agile in our projects. 15 days ago, I saw this post on Twitter, who said, one of these days I start a movement called #NoAgile. So I'm happy that I have this presentation before that guy started that. So I will get all the credits for this concept. Now, let's start with the first one, with #NoEstimates, because it seems that it is the most popular concept introduced as part of so-called #NoAgile movement. There are two guys who were talking a lot about no estimates. The first one, Woody Zuhl, he was talking about this about 15 years ago. But he became more popular 3 years ago when he had one speech about this at a conference. Also, Vasco Duarte wrote a book about how to measure project progress without estimating. Now, the main thing here is that we are not so good in estimating software. We are not doing a good job here. A quote I like is this one, which says that my project is 90% done. I hope the second half goes as well, which I think characterizes very well the way we are developing software. 1 month ago, I saw on the Facebook another joke, another picture, which is again very interesting because it seems that we could be recognized based on our estimation capabilities, based on our estimation skills. When something like this is happening, it's clear that we have problems in estimating software. And the main question here is it possible to have accurate estimations in software? Actually, accurate estimate, it's an oxymoron. There is a contradiction here, because when we are talking about an estimation, we are talking about a range. So we cannot be very exact in estimating something. Now, there is an example coming from an ex-Microsoft engineer, Corey Foy. And I don't know if you see the graph, but on the x-axis, we have story points, 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 20, Fibonacci sequence, Fibonacci numbers. And here on the y-axis, we have, he said, cycle time. He said that this cycle time is in days. Let's talk about hours. Let's suppose that they are hours. And what one line there means, for instance, here for this one, a user story estimated with one story point took between 0 till, I think, 90 or 88 hours. So it's a big range. For two story points, we have the best accuracy. So it seems that when you are estimating 2, it's good. So let's try to estimate all user stories with 2, because we will be more successful. It's very interesting with what happened with 8, because here stories which were estimated with 8 story points, which had assigned 8 story points, are in the range of, let's say, from 5 days or 5 hours till almost 300 hours. So what we can say about the accuracy of estimating user stories. Now, what you can see here with these green triangles, that's an average. And it seems that for user stories with 0 story points, the average is 25 hours. For user stories with 1 story point, there is again an average of 25 hours. Here is 15 hours. For 3 is again 17 hours, and so on. So they are pretty close. Now, let's see which is the accuracy of estimating stories and which is the accuracy of not estimating at all. If we are saying, for instance, that every story, no matter its complexity, is 25 days, we are more accurate without analyzing anything. We are more accurate than estimating that user story. And that's something, isn't it? There is another example with another project coming from Microsoft. What they did, they had a huge backlog for 24 iterations. They already did 3 iterations, and based on the velocity, let's say, they tried to predict when the project will finish. And based on that velocity, they predicted that the project will finish in 20th of October. They were starting in the beginning of January. And all stories were 1 point, 3 points, and 5 story points assigned. And what the Scrum Master did at that time, he just replaced 3 with 2 and 5 with 3. He just wanted to see what is happening. And after doing this replacement, he tried to predict again when the project will finish. And the prediction was somewhere at 15th of October. And he said, well, that's a pattern. Maybe that's a pattern here. And he replaced everything with 1. So what he did, he just counted the user stories. And based on this new, let's say, replacement, after he replaced everything, all story points with 1, he obtained a prediction the prediction was the beginning of October. So for 9 months, the difference between the first prediction and the last prediction was about 2 or 3 weeks. So it was something like 8% difference between those 2 predictions. So the question is, why to estimate at all? We just can count the user stories, and we will obtain the same thing. Here is, for instance, the prediction after just 3 sprints. And as you can see here, they predicted 349 story points, and the predicted output was 418 story points completed. So they completed 418 story points. So it was more with 20%. So it was bad estimation, let's say, because they were late with 20% based on what they predicted actually. And when they used when they just counted the stories, they obtained minus 4% accuracy. So they finished the project before the date they estimated based on this thing. After 5 sprints, they did the same thing. Here, the prediction was more accurate, plus 13%, but here it remained the same. Now, again, the question is, why to spend time in analyzing all those user stories for one huge backlog again and again, every time when that backlog is changes, and every time when our customers, our clients are requesting more features, when we can just count the stories. And it seems that the result is better. The plan we can do based on this thing is better than the plan we can do based on our estimates. That's strange. Of course, that if we have in our backlog stories with 1 story point and others with 30 story points, the difference is too big. So in this case, using no estimates is not a good idea. But when our stories are between 1 and 5, for instance, and the maturity level of our development team is high, we just can start developing features. We just can start deploying and deploying working software to our clients instead of spending time, or if you want, wasting time in planning meetings. There is another quote I like. It comes from another very well-known agilist, Jim Highsmith. So the question was, how to stop having consistently late projects? And he said, start them sooner. Because I've heard about projects which were estimated to be finished in 2 months, but the planning took 1.5 weeks or 2 weeks. So why to spend time on planning it? This is the main idea of hashtag no estimates. Of course, that this concept was not fully embraced by everybody. This is another post on Twitter from Woody Zuhl, who said that how I did on Twitter this week. 7 people blocked me, other 21 unfollowed me, and 17 said no estimates is stupid. Okay, but right now there are a lot of teams who are embracing this concept, and they are using no estimates in their day-by-day work. Okay, the next concept is no projects, and it was defined, let's say, in the beginning by Alan Kelly from UK. He wrote a book about this concept, and what he did, he analyzed a couple of software applications. Here you can see Moodle, WebTorrent, Perlord, and for Moodle we have wiki downloads 23,239 downloads per week, and the last update was 3 days before doing this analysis. For the others, weekly downloads 0, 0, and 9 and 8 months, the last update. And his conclusions were the following. The first one was that if somebody is using the software, it will change. And only that software stops changing. So when we are thinking to the definition of a project, we know that a project is a unique endeavor which has a start date and an end date. It seems that for software projects, there is no end date. If that software or the result of that software project, the software product is used, the development of that project is will never stop. If nobody is using that software, you will not change anything and your project stops, of course. So when your project ends, it seems that also your software product is dead. So for software projects, this is the idea coming from Alan Kelly, there is no end date. So we don't have an end for a software project. We have many releases. Look, here is a list of 9 different products coming from Coca-Cola, starting with 1899 till 2007. So they produce different shapes for bottles, in total 9 relevant shapes for their bottles in last 100 years. Now, Amazon today deploys new software to production every 12 seconds. Actually, right now, it's every 2 seconds. But the data I took when I did for the first time this presentation was every 12 seconds. That means that they are producing all new products or all new experiences Coca-Cola produced in last 100 years in 2 hours. And they are doing this again and again and again. Till the beginning of my talk, they deployed 5 or 6 releases, or even more, sorry. Also, when we are comparing the software products with manufacturing products, let's say, or here for milk, when we are talking about this, we know that milk is cheapest in big cartoons. In contrast, software is cheapest in lots of small cartoons. So we have to deliver fast and very often in order to obtain a performant product. So hashtag no products is based on this these things. So right now we are continuously working on our software products. There is no project. The next concept is hashtag no backlog. And here is the iceberg model of a backlog from Micon. we said that here are the user stories we are working on during the current iteration. Here are the user stories planned for the first release, for the next release. And here are the future releases, the future user stories. And everything is ordered based on the priority, based on the value obtained by the customer. Now, we know very well that these things sometimes are never developed, because in time, our customer is adding new features. They are estimated. In the meantime, they don't want those features, so they will receive a very, very low priority, and we will never develop them. On the other hand, we cannot remove them from the backlog because our client is getting upset. So we are going with the same huge backlog from one iteration to another, and what we are doing from time to time, we are re-estimating the entire backlog. So we are wasting a lot of time by estimating things, features we will not develop anymore. So the main idea here is, if every time we will work on the most valuable features, why we need other features than the first one? So actually, the backlog should have only one feature. So we should have backlogs with one story. If we are working in this way, our design, our architecture, our work will not be influenced by future features, which maybe will not be implemented at all. So let's just focus on the current feature, in developing the current feature. Of course, the size is not needed. So that means no backlog, hashtag no backlog, backlogs with only one stories there. There is another extreme practice right now, which is called mob programming, when the whole team is working at the same time on only one feature. There is one driver, and all the other developers are navigators. So in this case, it's more clear that we don't need more stories in the backlog. We just have to ask our client, which is the next feature, which is the next story you want to be developed. He will define it for us. We are developing it without thinking to next features. And after that, when it is finished, we have to ask for the next one, and so on. Interesting idea. Another idea from Paul Klipp this time. Paul Klipp is very well known for his contribution in for Kanban methodology. He made the connection between hashtag no backlogs and hashtag no estimates. He said most backlogs are waste. Again, why? Because they contain a lot of features which will not be developed at all. So that means, consequently, that estimating backlog items is super waste. Why doing it? And we said also something else. I don't agree with him. I don't necessarily agree with him. Revisiting backlog estimates are in mentally deranged territory. Okay? So we are not just estimating, we are sometimes re-estimating. And we are changing for some user stories the story points from 5 story points to 3 story points, just to have, in order to have a more accurate release plan. But as we saw before, this doesn't bring any value for our development team. Yes? Yeah, that's true. Thank you. That's true. I didn't say that we should not do plans, but those plans should be based on real data, based on what we did so far. So if we are looking for some automatic ways to forecast and to give us the plan, is much better than using the estimates. For instance, counting the user stories, it's a very simple thing. It takes 2 seconds or, I don't know, 10 seconds. But it seems that the output, it's much better than in the case of using estimates. So I didn't say that we should not give plans to our customers, but these plans should be based on some real concrete data, on some real or concrete statistics, without pushing our developers to estimate things. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's true. That's normal. You have to take decisions. You have to sign contracts based on these things, based on a plan, on a release plan, or on a product roadmap. Why not? Of course. We also need estimates to understand who to blame if the things are not going well. But we can use other methods. So the idea is to replace estimates with other practices which are giving us more time to spend on development features, and when we are comparing the accuracies, they are pretty similar. And the last thing, because I put together 2 concepts here, no release and hashtag no iteration. Here I would like to show you a diagram, a cumulative flow diagram, which is based on this on this track board. So we have here backlog, the features or the user stories which are in the backlog, user stories which are under development right now, on testing, which are the user stories which are done, and of course this bunch of stories are stories which are already deployed. And this is the cumulative flow diagram. We have the same colors. And there are 2 measures, 2 important measures here. One is average lead time, which is in average the time needed for user stories till the moment we are picking it from the backlog till it is actually deployed in the production. So this is the average lead time. And here the second measure is work in progress. The work in progress is the number of user stories that are under development right now. Those user stories which are not deployed yet, and we are continuing developing on them or testing them and so on. Or maybe they are done, but they are not yet deployed. And this example is taken from Dave Anderson's book, who said that he compared a lot of teams. He had a study case based on a couple of teams from Motorola, and he observed that longer lead times, so if we have longer lead times here, are associated with significantly poor quality of the final product. So if it is possible, we have to obtain a shorter lead time. On the other hand, there is a connection between work in progress and longer lead times. So if work in progress is short, consequently, the average of the lead time is also short. So the idea here is that if we have work in progress 1, so the entire team is working only on 1 story, we will obtain a very, very, so our final product will have a bigger quality than when we are working on more stories at the same time. So we are going back actually to hashtag no backlog, isn't it? And to hashtag no estimates. The idea is like this. Let's suppose that we have an iteration. Here is the start of the iteration, and here is the the end of the iteration, when we have the iteration review, or which is also called iteration demo, we are developing the first story, the second story, the third one, and so on till the last one. And at the end of that iteration, what we are doing, we are just presenting what we did, the working software, to our customer. But the whole time, this feature waits till the moment it was finished, till the moment we are presenting it to customer, is waste. Why to let that feature staying in our development system and not transferring it immediately in the, not presenting it immediately to our customer and transferring it to his production server. So again, this is waste. So that means that we don't need iterations anymore. We just need a constant flow of deploying features in a production system. That's how actually Amazon is doing it. And they are deploying a new release every 12 seconds. Okay, there is something else here. So in the beginning of every iteration, there is a lot of enthusiasm from the development team. After that, there is a period of uncertainty. They don't know if they will succeed to finish the stories which were planned for that iteration. And in the end, there is a lot of pain, because it's the deadline, you know, and you have to work harder in order to cover the stories you actually committed to your client that you will develop during that iteration. And when it's so much pain, we are not doing the right thing. There are a lot of bugs, a lot of quality problems for those features. And again, another issue when we are working with sprints or when we are working with iterations. This is the evolutionary prototyping spiral Peter Lissam mentioned during his talk. So I really think that the evolution of Agile is looking like this. You know, in the beginning, the management of software products was for managers. After that, we had extreme programming with a lot of practices defined by developers for developers, so more developers were involved in this. Right now, it seems that we are going back, and in Agile conferences, there are not so many developers attending. There are only managers there. So I think we have to go again, but to another level on that spiral, and to let again the developers to define the proper ways, the proper methods, the proper practices to develop software products. So if we had extreme programming, which was collection of practices at that moment considered being extreme practices for developing software, now most of those practices are common practices, are, let's say, normal practices. So I think that the next level is XXP, extreme programming. And I will tell you why I'm thinking this, because, you know, this is the trend. For instance, initially, programming was done alone. We were only us with our computer. After that, it was that extreme practice called pair programming. Right now, it is not considered as being so extreme. A lot of development teams are using this practice, but now we have, as I said, mob programming, which is more extreme. The same team is working at the same time at only one feature. Time estimate. In the beginning, we were using time to estimate features. After that, we were defining more discrete way to estimate stories, like story points. And right now, it's another movement, more extreme trend called #NoEstimates. Upfront design, evolutive design, no reusable software. I will tell you what does it mean. It comes also from Alan Carey, who said that there is no such thing as reusable software. I will explain you why he said this, because right now, if we are trying to develop reusable software, we are trying to imagine the ways our software will be used, and we are trying to make it so flexible that it could be easily integrated in any other application. Now, that means that sometimes we are not developing that feature in the simplest way. On the other hand, we are spending a lot of time in designing that software in ways nobody will use it. So the idea was there is no such thing as reusable software, there is only reused software. But reused software is after we developed it. So if developed it and somebody else finds it useful, that person will use it. Otherwise, we are just spending a lot of time for creating something nobody will use in future. It's possible that neither us will use it in future, but we stayed to design it to be reusable. So this is another hashtag no, if you want. No reusable software. And in general, we started from a process-oriented software development, waterfall. Agile Manifesto was suggesting to have a practice-oriented software development, and now it seems that everything is moving to a principles-oriented software development. And there are some voices who are saying that the future in software development is MVP, where MVP means minimum viable process. So every time when you are starting a new project with a new team, with a new customer, you have to choose the practices you think will fit for your project. So not to use a particular methodology. Thank you. I already finished the presentation. I think I finished it earlier. Anyways, if you have too many questions, hashtag no thank you. Thanks a lot. Any questions? Could you? Yeah. Okay. I don't think that it works only for product companies. Of course, that the development team will take the risk. But when I'm talking about development team, I'm thinking also about that person which comes from the customer, which is part of that development team, and who agrees to work in this way. Now, again, it's not something which will change completely the software development. We will use a lot Agile, but sometimes some practices from we are using right now in our development teams will be replaced with some of these hashtag no practices when it fits for our project, of course. Actually, it's pretty similar with implementing Agile, isn't it? Because if you are not following waterfall and we are implementing Agile, is again the same thing. It's a lightweight methodology, and the risk is bigger than using waterfall in the relationship with our customers. Thank you. Yes, there is one over there.
It just seems too extreme to me. I do agree that re-estimating stories that you're no longer going to developed, that makes no sense. That is another extreme.
Mhm.
But focusing and knowing about only one single story, maybe when you finish and you get the next one, you just realize that I need to throw it out, what I just did, because I wasn't prepared for this, or
Mhm.
how could this actually work?
So, you know, actually we are doing this when we are talking about iterations. Everything we are doing is based on that iteration. We are making the design, we are developing the architecture of our software for the stories which are in the iteration backlog, which are in the sprint backlog. Now, the only thing is that that backlog contains only one story, that's all. Instead of containing 5 or 6 or 10 user stories.
But you know the next story and the rest of it. And when you're developing the ones you take into the sprint, you're thinking, hey, the following story is going to be like that, so maybe it would be better if I implement it this way. So it has an effect.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. So the idea is to get rid of that. Why? Because we could spend a lot in designing something which will not be used anymore. Maybe those stories, we know that they are next, for the next iteration, they will be removed by our customer. Or they will be reprioritized and they will go to the bottom of the backlog. And we will, who knows, never develop them. So one of the ideas from coming from extreme programming, not from extreme programming, from extreme programming says that develop the feature as simple as possible. And after that, review your code to see if there is a simpler solution. If you have in mind what will come next, you cannot do that. In one of my teams, every time when I proposed, when we were analyzing a feature, even if that one was a very simple feature, it was somebody from my team who said, let's build a framework for that. Because it seems that we will have more similar features, so let's build a framework. We will just change some parameters and we will generate the code. And this is solving your problem in the most complex way possible, not in the simplest way. So we have to somehow, if you want, force our development team to not go in that direction. So to not be tempted to do this.
But that's again a really extreme situation.
Exactly.
I think somewhere in the middle is a better solution, because you cannot implement blindfolded. You need to know what's going to come in the future.
I agree. I fully agree. I fully agree with you. That's why I said I'm not an advocate of these practices. I actually didn't implement them in my teams yet, but it could be nice to try them and to see what is happening, and after that to change again. Always the solution from the middle is better than an extreme one. It is always. But right now, I don't really know if this is so extreme. Maybe in 10 years, we can talk about other methods which are more extreme than this one, and this will become the middle.
I used to work for a company which had this exact approach. Oh, we have a requirement, let's build a framework which generates another framework which builds that. And you know, that's useless. That's useless. But I think the balance that my colleague was mentioning before was the fact that maybe this whole presentation and the center point of this should have to be no bullshit. And not just at an implementation or architecture or design level, but at the requirements level, because a lot of the complexity which is injected in software projects comes often from the business side, from the product manager, from the client, who says, oh, we're going to scale this to 10 million users and they're going to build their own apps on this. How many users do you have now?
3.
50? Oh, okay. So maybe that's the gap we should fill. Maybe the gap is not necessarily over engineering, but over requesting in generality, in scope, and in wishful thinking. So no bullshit.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe we can say that all these concepts, hashtag no estimates, hashtag no backlog, and so on, are just particular instances of hashtag no bullshit.
One comment regarding the estimate. So I think, estimate somehow it's an umbrella for developers to make sure they have plenty of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you remove that umbrella, they will finish it and continue with the next task and so on. I think the main challenge here will be to make the whole environment nice enough to be really challenging for them and to make this with pleasure. Because, the story is, if you have a team with really engaged people, senior people usually, you don't really need any framework, you just go and do the stuff. Yeah, that was my comment.
So it was an intervention. It wasn't a question, huh? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thanks a lot. Have a nice evening. Don't forget to fill the feedback.